All right, we are on lesson 102. We are making great progress with these online lessons. Hope you guys are enjoying the lessons online, and I hope it's making sense for you. Today's lesson, we are going to be going over tenths and hundredths on a number line. Tenths and hundredths on a number line. Okay, so we've kind of talked about these before. I want you to look at these two rulers. We've got millimeters and centimeters. Do you know the difference? Can you see the similarities? Let's just take a look at those for just a second. There are how many millimeters in a centimeter? 1 centimeter equals 10 millimeters, right? So if we look at this little line that they've got for us right here, we could say that that is how many millimeters? Well, it's 20, 21, 22, 23, so probably 23 millimeters. Okay, if we had a centimeter ruler right under us, we could also see that it is 2.3 is what we say, but really that means 2 3/10, right? So I want you to notice the similarities between these two numbers, 23 and 2.3. All we did, we have a fake decimal right there, really. At the end of any number, there can be a decimal, because 23 is the same thing as 23.0, right? It's the same thing. So we have our decimal right here. If we are moving one place value, if 1 centimeter equals 10 millimeters, we're just moving one time, we can move that decimal right here to figure out centimeters, which is what we just did down here. Okay, so if you don't have a centimeter ruler right underneath your millimeter one, you can still figure out how many centimeters it is by doing that. Okay, I'll give you a hint. Down in a minute, we're going to have to figure out how many meters something is. So to go from millimeters to meters, we will have to do it, or from centimeters to meters. 1 meter equals 100 centimeters, so you'll have to move that decimal 2 times. Okay, so just knowing the relationship between millimeters, centimeters, and meters is very, very important. Okay, let's go down and let's look at these two number lines. Okay, so what number is this arrow pointing to in the one up here? This one right here is the one that we're on. What number is that arrow pointing to? Well, we know it's 3 decimal something. We know there are 10 little sections. It's pointing to the first one, so 3.1. That's what we say because that's what we write, right? 3.1. But I want you to practice saying 3 and 1/10 instead of saying 3.1. Because 3.1, what does that mean, right? But if it's 3 and 1/10, then it will be way easier for you to convert it into a fraction, which is what we are doing right here. 3.1 equals 3 and 1/10. That gives you a better idea of what we're actually talking about, right? If I said I ate 3.1 tacos, you'd be like, okay, whatever. I don't know what that means. But if I said I ate 3 and 1/10 of a taco, you'd say, oh, she ate 3 tacos and then she cut one taco into 10 pieces and ate one of those pieces, right? So that's what that means. Because we have 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 little sections is kind of what I call them. Then we put it over 10. That's where this number comes from. It's how many little sections you have. Okay, let's look down here. I'm not going to count all these for you. I'll just tell you there are 100 sections. So we're going to put a number over 100. Okay, so first we know it's 3 and something over 100. We'll just count by 5. So we've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So that means we've got 3 and then 25 hundredths. So we could also write that as 3 decimal 25. 3 and 25 hundredths, or 3 decimal 25. You see the relationship between those two things? All right, now we're going to go down to example 1. This is what I was talking about with meters. Santiago is 162 centimeters tall. 162 62 centimeters tall. What is Santiago's height in meters? So remember, we have like our decimal right here. If we're going from centimeters to meters, 1 meter equals 100 centimeters. We're going to move the decimal how many ever zeros we have, that many times. Okay, so if I have 1 0, I'll move the decimal 1 time. In this problem, I have 2 zeros, so I'll move the decimal 2 times. So I got 1, 2, put my decimal there. The answer is 1.62 meters. So 1.62 meters, that's what the answer is right here. So that is correct. All right, moving on to the next page. If you have your book, you can move to the next page, page 713. We're in example number 2. We are going to write the decimal number to which each arrow points. Okay, so each arrow is going to point to a specific number on the number line, and we are going to figure out what number it's pointing to. Okay, so the first one, we know it's pointing in between what 2 numbers? This one right here. In between what 2 numbers? We're doing A first. It's in between 9 and 10, right? So we know it's going to be 9 decimal something, right? 9 decimal something. Well, there are 10 pieces, so we need to figure out what piece it's pointing to. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 9.6. Another way we could write that as a fraction. Remember, it's a tenths. Right? This number, you say this number, 9 6 tenths. So another way you could write that is 9 6 tenths. Okay? And then the next one, ooh, this one's a little bit trickier. How are we going to do this? It's in between 7.5 and 7.6. So we know it's going to be 7.5 with another number on the end, right? Because there are, again, 10 pieces. Well, okay, those showed up. 10 pieces in between those 2. In that section, there are 10 different pieces. So we need to figure out what piece the arrow is pointing to. I know this is really small. We've got 1 piece here and then 2 pieces right there, which is where the arrow is pointing. So we're going to put a 2 on the end there. Okay. Another way we could write this number is as a fraction would be 7 and 52 hundredths. That's how you would say that number, that decimal number. You would say 7 and 52 hundredths. Okay, so that is our number, or our answer for number B, letter B. Okay, now we're moving on to example number 3. This is going to be our last example. We are going to round 96 to the nearest whole number. We are going to round 96 to the nearest whole number. So let's think, what is a whole number? Well, oh, sorry, I said 96. It's 9.6. We're going to round 9.6 or 9 6 tenths to the nearest whole number, okay? So 9 6 tenths to the nearest whole number. That means it's either going to be 9 or 10, right? Because pretend you have your number line here, right? This is 9, this is 10. You got a lot of little whatever between there, and this is 9.6 or 9 6 tenths. Okay, so it's in between 9 and 10. Which one is it closer to? Is it closer to 9 or is it closer to 10? Well, just think about 6. Is that number closer to 10 or closer to 0? 6 is closer to 10, so we're going to round up. So 9.6 becomes 10. The nearest whole number would be 10. Okay. If it was 9.4, then we would round down and the nearest whole number would be 9. Okay? But that's not really what we're doing. All right, and number B, letter B, the last one, we're going to round 7 and 52 hundredths to the nearest tenth. So this one we're rounding to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to underline in blue the tenth place. The tenth place is that 5 right there. So we're going to round to the nearest tenth. So it's either going to be 7.5 or 7.6. 7.5, 7.6, because we know 7.52 is in the middle of those two numbers. Okay, if you don't know that, you can look up here, right? 7.5, 7.6, 7.52 is in between those two numbers. Okay, so we've got 7 and 5/10, 7 and 6/10, and then in the middle somewhere we've got 7 and 52/100. Which one is it closer to? You're going to look at the 2. The 2 is smaller than 5, so it's not closer to 7.6. We're not rounding up. It's closer to 7.5, which we say 7 and 5/10. So round to the nearest tenth, 7 and 5/10. That's what we're talking about here, okay? I know I said 7.5 a lot. I know I said 7.6 a lot. I was just showing you where to put the decimal. But really, when we say these numbers, you can say whatever you want, but you need to know that when I say 7.5, I mean 7 and 5/10. You need to know that these two numbers are the same thing. They're the exact same number. If you do not know that, I need you to go back and watch part of this video again, because that is what you're going to need to know on your homework. You need to know how to convert from decimals to fractions and from fractions to decimals. Okay, 7 and 5/10 is written 7.5. Okay, that is all I have for you today. I will talk to you very soon. Good luck on your homework. There are only 10 questions. You'll do it on Canvas. Good luck with that, and you have a test tomorrow, so you will get prepared for that. Good luck on your homework and on your test tomorrow. See you later.